Welcome to the Momentum webinar series, where we ask expert facilitators to weigh in on topics that help advance women in leadership.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you so very much for being here at our Momentum webinar series. This is going to be a very fun day. We have two amazing leadership women who have just knocked it out of the ballpark. They are both founders of their own organizations in leadership. They have been coaches and authors and keynote speakers and world changers, and we're so excited to have them here today. I want to thank our sponsors for making this such a possibility here today, because this is actually a free thing that we get to offer to all of our community because of these sponsors. So we want to reach out and say thank you so very much for not only supporting us, but in doing so, you're supporting women and making a positive change in the world. We were talking about that a little bit earlier for those of you who did not get to be here. We were talking about the fact of having support and positive support. A lot of times we take it for granted when you come from a family that's just encouraging you to be your very best. You got great friends. Not everyone has that. And so having Momentum and other organizations like this and community like this is just vital to get plugged into and to help you continue that fire that you've got in you, and to help you to understand how to make that work and how to make it solid and how to, I guess, just sort of be what you're purposed here for and to live that out. And these two women are the ones that can help lead you right down that path. They're phenomenal. And we're so excited to have them here today. This is Sue Hodgkinson and Alesia Latson. They will be leading us today. And they both have been very dear to us. I was looking at Alesia's profile this weekend and all the amazing things she's done. I could go on and on about her. Sue has been with us for years, leading our women. She just finished a leadership breakfast and a class session for us on Thursday all day. Yay, thank you for that. Our breakfast that we had, our leadership breakfast, 500 women from all over Alabama came to hear Sue just encourage and challenge them to be the very best that they could be. And today we're going to talk further about why community is important and how we can be better together. No matter where you are, women shining the spotlight on other women has got to be a priority for us as women. Don't think that you're going to be able to change the world by doing it all by yourself. I'm one to be, it's always hard for me to ask for help, not because I think I can do it better. It's just I don't want to bother people. And I think today we can work through, I know I'm not alone in that. So thank you for you two both being here today. And I am just going to let you just jump right in. Okay.
Okay. We got it. Okay.
There you go.
Super. All right, let me just see what happens. So when something's wrong on my computer, so I'm gonna give a heads up when I need a click, okay? Just so I don't disturb us. I just want to say, with all of that now behind us, we can click to the next slide. I just want to mention to all of you that Alesia Latson and I actually are this. I was thinking about as we were getting ready to do today. We've been professionals working together in our own practices for certainly over 20 years. And when I was writing my first book, Alesia was home laid up with some surgery, and she helped me write a couple chapters. When I was writing my second book, she was really busy and didn't have time, and still helped me write another chapter. And over the years has been the person that I lean on when the toughest things have happened, and I always come away all put back together and good to go on the next thing. And I hope very much that she would say those same things about me, because I feel that very deeply. Definitely, it makes it easier when we're trying to manage career than going it alone. Oh my gosh, so much to the power of connectivity, of feeling just reassured about something you weren't clear on. The fact that when there's value back and forth, which we must be mindful that there is. The friendships can be some of the most special friends you have forever. And for Alesia and I, we work alone. Well, Alesia doesn't, though I do. So that built-in net of safety and affection is incredibly important to me. These are the other things I think that peer-to-peer support is very, very helpful for. And I'd like to go then to the next slide and talk just about a setup for what will be the meat of this session today, or the vegan burger of the session for those of you who are not eating meat, which Alesia is going to cover. But I wanted to just flag for us that Google is just one example as an organization of a company that says, you know what, women really, especially, can benefit from peer support. And they've got these two types of it, and they run it, very loosely. They're not the ones sort of program facilitating it, but they're making sure that people can find each other, women can connect, and it can be in a very safe and confidential space throughout that organization. And basically the culture in the organization says, we're committed to this. So, in the part A for Google, these very simple, everyday interactions, it's like, hey, I've got something coming up tomorrow, I'm trying to think about how to play it. What do you think? And that's a big guessing game sometimes. So it's important to have somebody who can weigh in and have you feel assured about where you're going, or change your frame and have you see it a different way. Of course, as women in systems that are often run by men, we become experts at reading all kinds of language going on around us, and being able with that read to offer insight to our colleagues about what the tension points might be, or where there's some energy that needs to maybe be thought about as somebody's going to go in and deliver some comments or remarks. Lots and lots and lots of support for other people is helping them see what they need to see themselves but cannot. And that comes by asking questions. And so we offer just a few simple ones down at the bottom, but these would be, in my view, powerful questions. They're the simple sounding, but, they cause the really deep introspection, and you've got then a buddy to sit there and sort of sort through the complexities to get to the other side of something that can just by yourself feel just like a big mash of stuff that you can't see through. And there are many other questions. And by the way, there are resources online endlessly about what are powerful questions, and powerful questions inventories that are great to bring to activities like this, because they enrich it. And funny enough, one of the most powerful questions on the list is the question, why? Why? And it's amazing. I'll take the next slide, please. Thank you. Now, the Google sort of power program, this version 2, it's a little bit more tightly woven into the system. And what is set up to do is effectively pair people to walk through the path that they're at together. And it acknowledges that, women see and feel and work with all kinds of different parts of their lives in a cohesive way, where it is sometimes said, and it's not true for all, but a lot of men are able to very effectively box things. This is a box that's work, this is a box that's home, and we often don't as women. So in this model that Google presents, the difference is that it's a higher level of intensity that has a longer run room anticipated, where people are trying to navigate things outside of work, of which there could be many, and they don't always have to be about family, but also then the career challenges that come with them. And so the last thing about that program is that it's not like unit-based or it's in my department. No, it's across this enormous organization. And it's part of the recognition that, wherever we are, we're facing these almost near existential kinds of challenges and questions, or like history repeating itself challenges that we find others will immediately identify with and be able to talk and support resolution through. So I think that's just really important to think about that in both of those ways. And then before Alicia brings you through the core guts of the program, I just did want to say that I was worried about asking her to help out today because she's unbelievably busy and has, it's just worth recognizing that this is a woman who started out in a corporate setting and then built her own business. And it has exploded to the point where, you know, she's got a staff as well as an enormous, there's an in-person part of the business and an enormous online portfolio of educational experiences, all built through her leadership and the support of the people that are on her team. And then to throw in just a little, you know, hobby here and there, as I was telling my friends from Momentum, yeah, she just, why not, let's just finish up this, was in Honolulu, I think she ran her first marathon. You know, why not? So one of those, let's get that one done. So here she is, back and refreshed, ready to take you on through the internal components of this incredibly important discussion of getting there better together.
Sue, thank you. Thank you for this extraordinary invitation. And I want to just say right back, over the years, over the decades, I can't imagine my life without Sue, what she's done for me professionally and what she's done for me personally. There just aren't words to express my appreciation and the depth of her impact. And I think that's the power of women supporting women. And so I have deep gratitude for her and her heart and her generosity. So today, in terms of this whole notion that we're stronger together, I thought I'd take the tact of, so how do we do the work such that we can help others help us along this journey? And so how do we prepare ourselves to be in a position to be a good collaborator? And so that's where I thought that we could start this conversation. And of course, want to invite your questions and comments. And so please, please, please use the chat to publish your thoughts and ideas. That way we all can benefit from them. But that's where I thought we'd start. And I would like to go in anywhere you would like to. So please, please, please share your thoughts and reactions. And so just as a general outline, I thought that we could start with sort of an internal reflection. So how do we support others, or how do we help others help us? And first, really getting clarity around where we are and where we want to go. So that internal reflection, and then the external alignment, and how do we really show up? Our intention of how we're showing up and how are we actually showing up, that's very important information to get. And so how do we get that data? We'll talk a little bit about that. How do we make the most of a collaboration when we're looking to create partnerships with others and supporting our journey? And then lastly, how do we have our manager be a participant in the journey? So those are some spaces that I thought we could travel, and again, really open to your questions and insights as well. All right, so let's start with this whole notion around internal reflection. And what I have come to appreciate just in my own career journey, that it starts with me being very clear about what I have to offer and what do I know that I have of value to contribute. And so I think it's important to be really clear around what is it that you do that is your sort of distinct contribution? And how is it that you do that thing that has you stand out or that is unique? And so really being clear around these two questions. What makes you, here's the first question. Let me share my screen really quickly here. What makes you the best at what you do? And what do you bring to your work that distinguishes you from others? Really being clear about that. And so if you were to ask me that question, Alicia, what makes you the best at what you do? And what do you bring to your work that distinguishes you from others? I would say this is that what I do best is bring out the best in others. And the way that I do that is that I listen well and I ask her questions. I think it's really important to really know what is it that you do well and what is it that has you do that well. And to be able to speak to it, just like you would say your name. It's just a matter of fact. My name is Alicia, and what I do well is I bring out the best in others. And the way that I do it is my ability to be present, to listen, and to ask questions. Just to be clear about it. And so for you, it might be, what I do best is I produce results through others. Or what do I do best? I solve problems. Or what do I do best? I accelerate business outcomes. But it needs to be that crystal clear. What do you do best? And then what is it about you, your secret sauce, that has you do it really well? I produce results through others. And what has me be very effective at that is X. Like, what is it? What is it? And so it really starts with you having clarity, I would say, around those two things. What do you do well? And what is it that you do that has you do it really well? And so if you have some clarity about that and you want to share it in the chat, we would love to hear it. We would love to see it. What do you do well? And what is it about the way you do it that has you stand out? And it really starts with being able to articulate that. All right, so that's the first step, really getting clear. So let me stop here to see what questions you have before we move on to the next step.
Alicia, while you're looking, I want to reference back to what Susan has been teaching us on what's your brand, which is exactly what you're talking about. What are you great at, and how do you show up with what you are great at? And I think that ties in beautifully with what she was teaching all of our women on Thursday, was an excellence of your brand and who you are.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. That's a great tie-in. And Christy, I see you here. I'm a connector. Someone else pointed this out to me a year ago. I do it by listening to what others say and help connect them to the need they've expressed. What, Christy? You're killing it. That clarity, I'm a connector, right? She's really clear. And what do I do well? I'm very good at connecting needs and listening and understanding needs and making those connections. Beautiful. Thank you, Christy. And then Serena, I'm great at empowering others. Oh my God, did you hear that? She says, I'm great at empowering others. Yes, you are, Serena. Yes, you are. Bringing a creative energy and inspiring others to step out of the box. I mean, isn't that clarity beautiful? Right? So it starts with you unapologetically. I don't know if you all have know about these cookies. They're called Archway cookies, and they're big cookies. And they have this wonderful tagline. They say, the tagline is, we are unapologetically delicious. I love that tagline, because I think for ourselves as women, we can be unapologetically delicious, unapologetically fantastic, when we have that clarity about what we bring. Stacey, thank you. I'm great at promoting career growth. What? And Stacey, what makes you great at promoting career growth? I can't wait to hear. Right? So having that clarity is the place to start. All right. Thank you all for that. All right. So next is, we talked about internal reflection, being clear about what we have to offer. Second now is looking externally. And so you could say, there's how we intend to be known and experienced. And then there's how we're actually experienced. And a friend of mine told me this once. She said, we are the experts of our intention and others are the expert of our impact. And the work is creating alignment between how do we intend to be known and experienced and how we're actually known and experienced, intention and impact. And one of the things that I learned from Sue over the years and her work around branding is that, every interaction leaves a mark. So just like, every time you touch something, you can't help but leave an impression or a mark of some sort. And that's true in every interaction. Every interaction, we leave a mark. And you could say that it ranges from either we're building our brand or squandering an opportunity to build our brand or actually damaging our brand. So every interaction leaves a mark. We have our intention and then we have the marks that we're leaving. And we want to make sure that those two things are aligned. And so that's what the external reflection is all about, is to get that information. Is my intention and impact aligned? Is my intention and impact aligned? So what I'm going to do is first sort of share like a story around intention and impact. And this is a personal story that led me on to do a quest, an exercise. So let me tell you the story and then I'll share with you the exercise and invite you to do the exercise as well. So first I need to tell you that I got married later in life. So both my husband and I, we both got married much later in life. And this happened about 5 years into being married. And so we were on a flight and we were flying to Singapore and we were flying, I think it's Singapore Air. Is that it? Yeah, I think it was Singapore Air. I don't know if anybody ever flown Singapore Air. It's an amazing airline. And at the time they were serving complimentary alcohol in coach. Now I don't even drink, but complimentary alcohol in coach, I had to experience this, yeah. And so anyway, it's a long flight. We're halfway through. I don't know if it was the alcohol, the attitude, or the altitude, but all of a sudden I had this great idea. And I turned to my husband and I said, listen, I have a great idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write down the 4 words that I would most hope that you would use to describe me as your wife. And then what I like for you to do is to write down the 4 words that come to mind when you think of me as your wife. And then let's see how many words match. All right. So he had been drinking that free alcohol too. So he was open for it. So he wrote down the 4 words that came to mind when he thinks of me as his wife. And then I wrote down the 4 words that I would hope that would come to mind. You could say that the 4 words that he was writing down, or the 4 words I was writing down was my intention, how I intend to be known and experienced. And the 4 words that he was writing down was my impact. So at the count of 3, we showed each other the list. How many words do you think matched? Synonyms count. Any guesses? Serena says 0. I mean, I'll say some goose eggs, right? 0. All right, ladies, I am proud to say 2 words matched. Synonyms counted, all right. But 2 words didn't. And of course, I was interested in 2 words that didn't. And so one of the words, thank you, Anne-Marie, with the 2 right there aligned with me there. So one of the words that was on my list and nothing showed up like it on his list was the word considerate. So I had on my list that I was I was hoping that he would see me as a considerate life partner, and nothing close to consideration showed up on his list. So then I asked, hey, I noticed, nothing around consideration showed up on your list. To which he then says, well, it's not that I think you're inconsiderate or anything. It's just that I don't think you lead with consideration. To what I said, what do you mean I don't lead with consideration? To what he said, now what he says next, ladies, I want to tell you something. What he says next alters the trajectory of our relationship, all right? Here's what he says. He says, it's not that I don't think you're inconsiderate. I just don't think you lead with consideration. I said, well, what makes you say that? He says, because you live your life like a single woman who happens to be married. To which I said, what do you mean I live my life like a single woman who happens to be married? To which he says, you just make plans and you expect that I want to do them too. To which I said, I make the plans so that you don't have to because I'm considering. Right? See what I mean by misalignment between intention and impact? So then I said, well, listen, if I were considerate, what would that look like in your book? He goes on to say that he tells me this story about how when he was growing up, his mother was a single mom, had 3 jobs, and could never go to his baseball games and basketball games. And my husband is really into sports. And so fast forward, we come back from the trip, and I decided that I'm going to surprise him and I'm going to show up to one of his basketball games. My husband, he's on all these leagues, basketball, softball, and they're all over 40 leagues, right? And I don't know if you've ever been to an over 40 league event, right? Anyway, there's not much happening, but I decided I'm going to go because I'm going to be considerate. And so I showed up to this little basketball game, and I was the only person in the stands. And when my husband saw me, he lit up like a Christmas tree, right? And then he started trying to show off. There was a little dribble and all of that. And the reason why I say that that conversation changed the trajectory of our relationship is because it added a level of sweetness. I've made it a practice to go to his games, not all of them, but I've made it a practice over the years to go to his games, and it's made a tremendous difference. I tell this story because I could have gone all this time thinking how considerate I was. Does that make sense? And would have missed the opportunity. Now, what does this have to do with you and your career journey? It is so important that you get data that allows you to know if there's calibration between intention and impact. Does that make sense? It's so important to get that data about how do you want to be known and how you're actually known. And so there are, when you think about your career journey, there are a lot of relationships that you have. And there's a way in which you want to be known and experienced in those different relationships. That's your intention, but unless you know your impact, you really can't calibrate. And so one of the things I would highly recommend in terms of getting that external alignment between intention and impact is to ask for it. And one of my favorite exercises around asking for it to get that information is to text friends and family and ask them for 4 words that they would use to describe you. And you want people in different contexts in your life, right? So if you're on a board, you can ask board members, what are the 4 words you would use to describe me in terms of being a board member? If it's your kids, you can send a text out to them. What are the 4 words you describe me in terms of being a parent? Peers. And so you can decide on, who the target population is. So first, again, you want to get clear about how do you want to be known and experienced. And then you want to get data to see, is there alignment? Is there alignment between my intention and my impact? Is there alignment between my intention and my impact? And so if you want to right now, send some texts out to people to ask them for 4 words. And then if you want to share your 4 words in the chat, that would just be fun. That would just be fun. You don't have to, of course, but if you wanted to, we would have a good time with that. So, so intention and impact, always looking for that information. Is there calibration? Is my intention and impact, is the internal and external aligned? All right, let me stop here and just see what questions do you have about that, the internal, external alignment. Questions so far? So far, so good. All right. Okay. So then where I'd like to go next is to talk about, like, how do you make the most when you're talking about your career journey and you wanting others to, to support you in that? How do you get the most out of it? And so let me share just a couple of things. And Sue, I'm going to ask you also to weigh in as well. Here are just a couple of thoughts around that. The first thing is, don't give your collaborative colleagues work to do. And so here's what I mean by that is that oftentimes people will reach out to me, and I'm always delighted when they do, but they'll reach out to me for career support, and I'm happy to give it. And I love it when they don't make it my job to do it and that they help me. And so, for instance, if they are on my LinkedIn and there's somebody that they want to connect, for me to make a connection, I'm always happy to do it. But I love it when they say, Alicia, I would love for you to connect me with XYZ. I've written out some of the things that I would love for you to share with them about my background. And I've also attached my LinkedIn link and resume. That they make it so easy for me to help them. Does that make sense? And so whenever you can do that for people, make it so easy for them to help you. I've just found that that has been a difference maker. It's just a difference maker. So the more that you can do to support people and helping them help you, it just I have found makes such a difference. And so of course, when you do reach out, to really be prepared with what are the questions you want to ask, what do you want to get some insight on. And also, what will you offer in exchange? So a couple of things I want to say about that. And the first thing is, and this again, I owe this to Sue in terms of her work around branding, but the importance of, one, creating quote unquote brand builders, and then also being a brand builder for others. And so a brand builder is someone who's an advocate and champion of you. And what brand builders do is that they pollinate your brand in the hearts and minds of others, right? So they go around and they tell people, oh my gosh, do you know Sue? Oh, she's the best, right? They pollinate your brand in the hearts and minds of others. And so for your brand builders, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're giving them information to pollinate. That's your job. You want to make it easy for them to build your brand, right? So you want to be supplying them with information, updates about what you've been doing, what you've been up to. So if they're going to be pollinating your brand already, they're already an advocate and champion, you want to make sure that you're giving them information to pollinate. So that's one thing. Also, you want to be a brand builder for your brand builders. So you want to also be pollinating their brand in the hearts and minds of those in your network as well. So it goes both ways. It goes both ways. And so it's showing up as a good partner, really making it easy for people to advocate on your behalf, fortifying them and supplying them with information such that they can do that effortlessly. I find just makes a big difference, All right, Sue, anything else you would add to that?
Just as I think about it, the idea that part of career journeys, we don't often think about it this way, but it must include this element, which is really promotion, right? It's this sustained effort to ingrain your identity in the organization through key strategic others. And it really is so much easier to have an incredible journey of a career and a swifter one when more people, have a knowledge of you and an awareness of you that's been so thoughtfully built. So I just wanted to appreciate what you said and add that on the back end. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you, Sue. Thank you. I'm looking at the chat here, and Florence, I see your question here. Do you have this? Do you have the same brand from a business and a family perspective? So I'll take a stab at that, and then Sue would love to get your thoughts, reactions around it. So what I would say is that there is, there's a lot of different contexts that we operate inside of. And we have a brand inside of all those contexts, right? So I have a brand as a daughter, but I also have a brand as a peer. I have a brand as a wife, but I also have a brand as a business owner. And so there's different contexts that we find ourselves in, and we all have, and then there's a way in which we're known in those different contexts. So do you have the same brand from a business and a family perspective? Is all contextual. And it always starts with, well, first, how do you want to be known in that context? Your intention. And is that how people are experiencing me? So Florence, I don't know how well that answers your question. And Sue, what would you add?
I just put on the back end of that thought that, because I think you've said most of it, your values never change with context, right? So the one thing that's always consistent across different groups or situations is the set of core values that you have. And so it just came to me when you were talking, like if you heard that someone did something and it seemed out of character for them, and you trust this person and their values, the response that would come from you is either, oh, Sue would never do that, or oh, okay, that's a little bit of a disconnect for me. I'm going to have to think about that. And so what's wrapped up in that really big, and I think an important question, is consistency across constituents, and especially on the values, on the basis of your core values.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. Okay. All right. So, all right, Florence. Okay. Thank you. All right. So where I thought we go to next is, I'm going to have us go to number 4, your manager is crucial to your career journey. And so a couple of things just to share about that. I know you all know this already. Sending regular updates to your manager is so important so that they have a sense of what you're doing and the difference that you're making, and being able to communicate your value and to have a real clear value narrative. And so, like I mentioned before, it's really important to make it easy for people to pollinate your brand in the hearts and minds of others. And one of the ways to do that is to have a clear narrative around your value. And this is where I find that women have a hard time talking about themselves. And so I'm going to share with you just a simple framework for how to talk about your work. It has 6 steps. And it's not that you have to do all 6 steps, but it's important to know what the 6 steps are so that in the moment, you can decide what is the best constellation given the audience and given the context. So I want to start off with saying that a lot of people have a hard time talking about themselves, and mostly because we have in mind that person who we don't want to be, that is self-grandizing or self-serving, and we don't want to be that. And so I always say that when you start to talk about what you do in your work, I always say start with an expression of gratitude. And one of my favorite quotes is, nothing is more noble than a grateful heart. And when we start with gratitude, I think that then sets the tone for what comes next. Now, this isn't about bragging or boasting, but this is an expression of gratitude. And when it comes to work, I think we have a lot to be grateful for. because we have the cognitive capacity and the opportunity to contribute. We are very privileged in that way. Not everyone on the planet has such privilege. And so when we can start talking about our work with that frame of gratitude, I think now then that is a compelling expression. So so that's how I say to start to talk about your work, is to start with gratitude. And it's really interesting because if you think about it, most of us spend most of our time working in a work day. And the question now is, how do we talk about our work and the work of others? And I think because so much of our life energy is expended working, I think it's worth exaltation. I think your work is worth exaltation. And I think the work of others is worth exaltation. And so when it comes to communicating your value and your value narrative, it's one, to acknowledge the privilege of contribution, because it is a privilege, and to exalt work because it's worthy of exaltation. And with that sort of as a backdrop, here's just a simple way to think about, how do you talk about your work to your manager, to a colleague, to, if you're at a networking event, how do you talk about your work so that people can help you in your journey? And I always say, start with an expression of gratitude. It could be as simple as, listen, it's been a real privilege to be a part of the XYZ team. Or I'm grateful for the opportunity to lead the ABC team, or I'm excited or proud, right? So when you start there, right, it sets this inviting tone. So first start with an expression of gratitude, and then very quickly talk a little bit, just like in a sentence, the importance of the work. I'm very excited that I had an opportunity to be a part of the team that was charged with decreasing or increasing retention. Very simple, right? I said the expression of gratitude and the importance of the work, increasing intention, decreasing attrition is what I want to say. Decreasing attrition, increasing retention. Number 3, your involvement in the work. So my role was to identify a strategic plan. I always say, start with your involvement, just don't end there. Always start with your involvement. My role, my contribution, my focus. Step 4 is acknowledging that no one does it alone. And this is where you acknowledge others very quickly. So my role was to outline sort of a strategic plan, to be a thought leader in the plan. And the team was involved in XYZ. So this takes seconds, not a long monologue, just seconds. Then you could talk about, what we were able to achieve as a team, or what I found most rewarding, or the feedback that was most impactful was, and then you say what the work did. And then the last thing is to end with an insider appreciation. I'm really grateful. Or, what I learned was, or I have a greater appreciation for X. And it's a package of data now, like you've packaged in such a way that a person now can talk to someone else about your work and represent the value that you bring. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have to do all 6 all the time, but I have found it's useful to be practiced at these 6 things. So then you can configure a message that's aligned with the situation of the person. And that this can take away any concerns that we might have about talking about our work. So let me stop here. And again, I want to get Sue to weigh in on this, and then get your questions and reactions as well.
Thanks, Alicia. I just want to say, I really love this list. And when we think about the purpose of today's conversation really being about together, what's really important is that we know not all of us are the best at getting the message across of what value is all about. And I think Alicia's intellectual frame, looking at today's work, if I may say, is at least in great part about how do you take the support that you can reach out and get and give and operationalize it. And for me, just looking at this list, which I had not seen before, we all, from a gender perspective, probably could use at least a double check on how effectively we are or aren't getting our own message out. And when we think about the statistics of who's making it, to key positions, who's getting those raises, this is why. It's the people who have mastered what she's presenting just here, and the fluency that you've developed in delivering this. And so I would put forth that I think for us as women, not all, but some, this is one of the hardest things. You can think about it all day long, but to do it, right, to actually do it, a lot of people fall off on the way. So I just look at this page and go, wow, what a powerful presentation of ideas that two collaborators could sit and really unpack and work with, not just once, as part of getting this down into that fluency that's comfortable for you and value add for the person that you're telling it to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. So thank you, thank you. All right, all right. So what I wanted to share next is, these collaborations can come from unexpected places. And I wanted to share some research on first impressions. So I shared this with you already, but let me say this again. So am I sharing my screen?
Not the slides.
I'm not, okay. And so here we go, let me try again. So I shared this before, right? Every interaction is an opportunity to either build, squander, or damage your reputation. So every interaction, you leave a mark. And there's this research out there called the 7-11 rule. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before, but it's around first impressions. And the 7-11 rule is simply this: in the first 7 seconds, we form up to 11 impressions. And those impressions are around these 3 things. Do I believe the person? Do I like the person? Do I trust the person? So BLT, right? The first 7 seconds, we form up to 11 questions. Do I believe them? Do I like them? Do I trust them? And this research comes out of NYU. And here's what they found were the 11 impressions. Now, these 11 impressions are contextual. So it doesn't mean that we go through this list of 11. But as an example, let's say that you were meeting your, let's say you had an adult daughter, and you were meeting your daughter's fiance for the first time. All right, so you're meeting for the first time. Think about what are the numbers that you're probably, looking for, right? You might be looking at 2 and 5 and 11. And so that's what the researchers said. So it's not like we go through all 11, but in the first 7 seconds, we're making impressions around, do we believe the person? Do we like the person? Do we trust the person? Now think about it. You extend your hand to a stranger to introduce yourself. In the first 7 seconds, they're making assessments. And we do the same. Now, do we do this because we're judgmental? No, it's just what it means to be human. We have to determine very quickly friend or foe. If our ancestors weren't able to do that well, we wouldn't be here, right? So friend or foe, it's a foe, I gotta go. So the first 7 seconds, we make 11 impressions. Now, here's what's interesting. those impressions, whatever they are, guess what? They are very sticky. They're sticky. And in terms of this cognitive discounting, once we formed an impression about someone, we tend to disregard any information that's inconsistent with that impression. So if I have a favorable impression of you, I'm likely to disregard any information that's inconsistent with that favorable impression, yes? But if I have an unfavorable impression about you initially, now I'm likely to disregard any favorable information about you. Those impressions are sticky. Every interaction leaves a mark. You're either building, squandering, or damaging. And so when you're able to communicate your value narrative in a compelling way, concise and in a compelling way, that's really sticky. And you are now informing how you want others to perceive and experience you. We say, don't leave that to chance. You want to inform that. You want to inform that. And so you want to be strategic about that as well. So, Sue and I, we're not advocates of networking for networking's sake. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody. Well, at least the two of us don't want to do that. And so we say be strategic about it. Make every expenditure of energy that you network, have it matter. And so this is Sue's creation here, but it's her reach and frequency tracker for networking. And Sue, would you mind speaking to it?
I'd be delighted. Yeah. Again, think about how hard it is to get to to operationalizing the kinds of things we've been talking about, because I'm looking at the chat list, which I'm so grateful for. And what's resonating with people is like, yeah, I got to do this. Yeah, it's helpful. It's on point. So what we do is we say, oh, you need to raise your profile in the organization. That's the header in a coaching comment. But the operationalizing of that can look like this. And reach and frequency is, I'm just going to steal one extra minute, is language from a tool that people in marketing use for advertising purchases. How much reach am I going to get, and how of my target market, and how often am I going to hit them in this particular advertising buy? And I've converted that over to use for networking, so that we can be deliberate about, because nobody wants to network for no reason. Who are the people that I do need to have some exposures to? And that would be in my target audience, just like if we were doing an advertising buy. And then, okay, but there's names on here that scare me. I don't know what I would talk with them about. No, okay, we'll brainstorm with others who can advise you. Perfect for today's conversation. Who can you talk to about what the message might be? To have plenty of people, including introverts, who just like, I stop there. Stop. I don't know what I would talk to this person about. And you just get some advice and go with it. So what's the messaging? What's the method? Is it, how am I going to get with this person? Do I need to do an indirect and ask somebody to open a door for me and connect us? Can I just invite this person to get together, for a cup of coffee? Think about those things and find out in what ways, right? The person that you'd like to meet with, most typically does that. What do I want to achieve in this meetup? And how often do I want to be sure I have that happen? Typically, sort of in a 12-month planning period. And you can mark down, when did you last see them? And when are you going to next see them? Which would have been the ask in the meeting, in the networking meeting. Of like, hey, this was great. Can we get together again? And the person's like, yeah, sure. Follow up with me. And you write down in your note here, okay, reach out again for some time, next quarter. And so this thing is really, again, a great mechanism to bring into a huddle with somebody who's on your journey with you together, and just talk it through to fine tune how you're showing up in these things, to apply lessons that maybe, you took away, or that somebody advising you gives you, or even that the person you met with gives you. And it's the rubber meets the road right here on the career journey. And honestly, I can think of no better way to do it than together with somebody else, because you can have a beautiful meeting after each of you have done some assignment on the reach and frequency and met out with somebody, and just talk through what was yours like and what was mine like. And also, if you know you have the call coming up with that person, you have to do it. And that's what we really want to be sure of. You did it. You got to get out there and do it and not think about it, but do it. I'm done. I recognize the hour too, a couple of minutes left. So I turn it back to Alesia and to Darla.
This was a fast hour, I want to say. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been really fabulous to be with these amazing women, for sure. Thank you.
We're just so glad to have both of you here. We could, if we could, it would be like an all-day thing again. Definitely we'll have you two back, and you can definitely count on that. I hope that you will clear your calendars for us when we do. Before we do leave, I want to thank our sponsors once again for giving us an opportunity to make this a free opportunity for everyone, and to remind everyone for our executive classes for Huntsville and February, we have the registration that is open for our up and coming classes that is closing on April 30th. Is that correct, Tina? Okay, yes, I got the nod on that one. I just want to make sure I give you the correct date on that. Thank you so much. This will be downloaded and posted on our website, our YouTube channel, so for everyone can come back and look at this again. And we will also include a link on there of how to get in touch with both of these phenomenal leaders for any questions, and to also buy their books, because they are great. I actually have bought Susan's book and given it to my daughters, The Dignity Mindset, because I think it's so important that we continue this movement of understanding each other. And thank you so very much, Alesia. Can't wait to take a look at your books and also get those passed around too. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much, Alesia. Thank you. Thank you, Momentum.
You're so welcome. Thank you everyone for being with us today, and y'all have a fabulous week.
Thanks for taking the time to invest in yourself by watching our webinar. This series is produced in partnership with Social U. Many thanks to our sponsor companies, including America's Thrift Stores, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, Protective Life, and Regions Bank. A full list of Momentum sponsors is online at momentumleaders.org/sponsors. Beyond this webinar, we have a lot of ways for you to get more momentum in your life. Check out the show notes for additional links and resources.